Would you believe me if I told you I was in for pretty much all of that? Let's hop into today's session very quickly as we have a lot of poker to go over. Buckle up. By this point in the session, we've already been kind of like up and down. Played a couple of really small pots, but those have added up in the negative way as they're not going in our direction at all. But in the first hand of note, there's an early position limp here to 20 bones. I find myself in the cutoff with 7-5 suited. Why not do a little bit of clacking up? I decide to raise it to $50. The player on the button decides to make it 160. Only I make the call, and the flop comes out 10-9-7 with 2 hearts and a club. That is a really great flop for us. This is a board that I think is going to be better for me than my opponent. So when I check it over to him, I have some really devious thoughts in my mind. I check it over to him, and he decides to c-bet here for $125. As we mentioned, I didn't do this to not get out of line, so I make it $400. I feel like any single turn card that I think would improve my range, let alone my actual hand, I'm just going to go with it here. After he decides to make the call, we're going off to a turn card. That comes the Queen of Clubs. This is probably one of the best cards in the deck. One, because I doubt my opponent has jacks. I think somebody with jacks might even stick it in, honestly. I think ace, king, aces, kings, a bunch of hands are just put in a tough spot. Ace 10 even. There's just so many hands that are put in an awful spot that cannot call this, let alone the fact that, as you guys know, we still have, I guess, one side of the straight to look forward to if our opponent has an overpair. So I decided to just go all in for $1,200. My opponent goes deep into the tank and actually tanks for quite a while. And I think as he comes to realization, there's just almost never a hand that I can be bluffing with. Little does he know that I have 7-5 here. Probably the only hand I'm ever going to be bluffing here today. So he ends up deciding to fold, luckily for us. And just like that, we find ourselves heading back to the right direction. Let's get into the next hand. Well, we've got to keep things moving because these poker hands aren't going to poker hand themselves. In this next hand, the straddle is on, and I am in said straddle. Button makes it 105, the big blind calls. I'm in the straddle, and I look down at ace-queen offsuit. I think this is a really good spot to 3-bet, but I decided to just play passively and just call. I think this is not good for many reasons, but we'll get to that on another day. Flop comes out pretty favorable as it comes ace-king 7. With the action checked over to the initial raiser, he c-bets for 125, and I make the call. The turn card comes out a jack of spades. Not good, really. Luckily for us, the turn card ends up getting checked through. The river card comes out the king of diamonds, pairing the second card, which is not that great, but I think that there's still an opportunity to get value. Obviously, when the board pairs, it's less likely that our opponent can have said king, but obviously our opponent can still have an ace here, and when that's the case, we've got to bet for value. I decided to bet off for $250. Our opponent thinks about it for a second and calls. We show and we win. All right, bouncing back after some early turbulence. Well, you want the fun, crazy hands, and I've got them for you. In this following hand, the button makes it 75, the small blind and the big blind make the call. I'm in the third blind, and I look down at ace-6 of hearts. I decided to play a little more cautiously and just call here, allowing me to realize some equity, hopefully. The straddle calls as well. We're going 1,000,005 ways to the flop. That comes out really good for us. 10-3 deuce with 2 hearts. Flop ourselves the nut flush draw as well as some other backdoor excitement. And luckily for us, it ends up checking through. The turn card comes a 4 of clubs. This now adds a plethora more of outs. Not really a whole lot more, but, you know, it's good for us. With the action on the small blind, he bets 150. Oddly enough, now, our good friend of us by the name of the Flea decides to raise it up to 600. You guys definitely know who the Flea is. He's a character that has almost become synonymous with the Michael Jackson moonwalk every time he wins a hand. I don't think the Flea is just getting carried away and blasting off, but our hand's just too good to ever fold. I throw in the call here. Not the best thing in the world, but again, our hand is still significantly under-repped. Either way, it gets back over to the small blind, and he does the unthinkable. He decides to go all in for about $1,700 or $1,800. Not great, but now we have a lot of money invested. The opponent to my right, who has about $1,100 or $1,200 total, decides to call all in, and the action's back to me. Well, now at this point, it's a no-brainer. We are getting an unbelievable price to call now. Unfortunate that it came to this, but it is what it is. We throw in the call here, $5,000 in the middle, over $3,500 in the main pot, and nearly $1,500 in the side pot. We decide to run out 2 boards, and we're gonna need help. As the opponent in the big blind shows 5-6 for the turn straight, And the small blind shows pocket deuces for the flopped set. Oh my goodness. Maximum cooler alert. Either way, we run out 2 boards, and the first board comes out with a 7 of diamonds on the river, and the second river comes out a king of spades on the bottom board. Well, we don't improve here, and a massive pot is going to get shipped in the flea's direction. Man, so unfortunate when these fleas are just infesting the game. Tough luck. So at this point, I'm still licking my wounds, but little do I know we are going to be going through some valleys today. Enough for the foreshadowing, we have some more funness to go over. The $20 straddle is on. I think we're like 5 or 6 hand at this point. We started earlier than usual, and it seems like some people are running late. The button makes it 75. The big blind calls. I'm in the third blind, and I call with Jack 10 of diamonds. The straddler calls as well. We're going way too many ways off to a flop that comes Jack 3-7 with 2 clubs and a diamond. With the action checked over to the initial raiser, he decides to size up for a big sizing of 200. Action folds to me with top pair, but I think the best thing is probably just to call, allow my opponent to continue to bluff with all of his random draws. The turn card comes a deuce of hearts. Heads up here, I think there's nothing else to do besides check. Our opponent double barrels for 700. Once again, going really big. Obviously, this opponent is very capable of bluffing, so I've got to make the call. I stick it in. And the river card comes a king of diamonds. At this point, my hand has turned not that good here. Obviously, a lot of his bluffs now improve. His king X of clubs, ace king of clubs, all now improved to top pair. When I check it over to him, he thinks about it for a second before deciding to check it back. Obviously, when he checks it back, it's probably not the best thing in the world because, honestly, he now has some showdown value, obviously. He ends up showing pocket queens, so unfortunate for us that we lose that pot. Alrighty. You know what they say, right? Patience is a virtue. The straddle is on in the next hand, as it will be for the entirety of the session, so I should probably stop saying that. Cutoff makes it 60. The button calls, and I find myself here in the small blind, and I decide to 3-bet it up to $300 after we look down at pocket aces, the pocket rockets. Don't you love to see it? Luckily for us, both players make the call. It's unfortunate that I'm out of position, but when the flop comes 10-6-5, not a whole lot to worry about here. Decide to throw out a little bit of a meteor c-bet here for 450. Again, I'm not too worried. Obviously, I don't ever have 6s or 5s here myself. I do have some good board coverage, obviously, as I do have all the overpairs as well as top set. But all of that being said, you know, I have aces. Can't be that bad to just bet, right? Luckily for us, the cutoff decides to jam it all in here for 1500. The button gets out of the way. We have a very easy call, and we decide to run out 2 boards here. The first board comes out with a 3 of hearts on the top board and then an 8 of diamonds on the river to complete the first board. The second turn and river come the jack of clubs and the 6 of diamonds. Not the best run out on either board, but when my opponent says we are good, that's all I needed to hear. Nearly a $4,000 pot shipped in my direction. Look at that. Some turbulence, but we're willing to battle. One thing that I think I'm getting much better at than I ever had, you know, in my repertoire before was just living with the outcome. Sometimes the deck is just not on your side, and sometimes it is. In this next hand, we're playing a $50 bomb pot, 9 different ways, and we're going off to 2 flops. First board comes out ace, 5, 8. The bottom board comes out queen, 8, 5. The action ends up checking through, and I still haven't even seen my hand. The top turn comes out the 3 of spades, and the bottom turn comes out the jack of clubs. So now there's 2 backdoor flush draws on both boards. And finally, I get to look down at my hand after it checks over to the button who decides to bet 150. The small blind calls, the middle position player calls, and the action's on me. We look down at a freaking monster. We look down at ace, king, queen, jack. We have ourselves the absolute coconuts on one of the boards, as well as the nut flush draw on the other one, coupled with top pair, top kicker. Oh my goodness, we just seem to have this board locked up. All that being said, I think that raising is the only course of action. I make it $500 to go, albeit a little too small. Considering this is PLO, maybe saying pot makes more sense. But I do just that, and the button and the small blind call, we lose a player here, and the river's cards come following. 9 of hearts on the top board. The bottom board comes out the 7 of clubs. Okay, once again, not the best run out in the world, but it's a little trickier to get scooped on, but, you know, who knows? At this point, our opponent from the small blind decides to throw out a bet for $24.50. that is the size of the pot here. So once again, this pot is ballooned up. Obviously, I'm not a PLO professional, but luckily for me, no one else is at this game. So after a little bit of thinking, I decide that there's just a good chance that I'm not getting scooped here. I decide to make the call. The button folds, and our opponent announces straights on both boards. He exposes his hand, and he has 9-8-4 deuce. So for my mathematics here, we end up chopping up this pot, as he will win with 4 deuce on the one board, and we win with the nut straight on the other. It is at this point that someone else at the table calls out that, wait, he actually has a flush. And after some closer looking, it is true. Our opponent has the 8 deuce of clubs. So in another big pot, it's an accident. So this is not anything malicious, obviously, but our opponent misreads his hand and ends up obviously having us crushed on both boards somehow. So our opponent was seemingly probably just bluffing / value betting. And unfortunately for me, I'm just the one idiot. Unfortunately for him, that was, willing to call here, I guess. But yeah, we ended up getting scooped in like an 8 or 9K pot. That one was really painful, but yeah, that's a part of the game. And here it is. Finally, we have an opportunity to make some money. We look down at Pocket Queens, the ladies. I 3-bet to $250, and then somehow Mr. Chris, friend of the vlog, out of nowhere, clacks it up to $500 for a 4-bet. Alarm bells are definitely ringing with this super small sizing, but come on, I have Pocket Queens. But before I can even gather my thoughts, my wits about me, out of literal nowhere, the early position raiser 5 bets for $1,500. Oh my goodness, man. Look, I haven't done it often in my life, but ladies and gentlemen, let's watch together in agony, but also a bit of pride. I'm proud of myself for this. There it goes. Goodbye, Pocket Queens. We'll see you on the next time. I decided to fold my Pocket Queens here. Maybe hard, maybe easy, maybe all the pros in the chat think it's good. But before I tell you what everyone has, let me know in the comment section what you think our opponents have. Obviously, Mr. Chris thinks about it for a second before deciding to fold as well. And Mr. Chris says that he had Pocket Jack, so we had him crushed. What did our opponent from the under the gun position have? He had Pocket Aces. Pocket Aces. I'm dodging bullets, baby. Even when we play bad, we can figure out a way to just play that one good. Alrighty. Well, after the previous debacle, we find ourselves in another interesting situation where an opponent here from middle position raises it up to $75. We look down at Queen 10 offsuit. I decided 3-bet to $250. The initial raiser ends up calling. We're going off to a flop. We flopped ourselves top pair on a pretty dry board texture. I think my hand plays best as a check. He actually ends up betting $150 though. I decide to make the call, and the turn card comes a king of diamonds. I decide to check it over to him once again, and he just massively here for $800. That's going near the size of the pot, so now this is something to be worried about for sure. I make the call for $800, and the river card comes at Jack of clubs. In real time, I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking. Oh my gosh. It is super hard for my opponent in a 3-bet pot to really improve on this specific run out. Outside of having an 8, which is possible, 8, 9, and 7, 8 are the only 8s that I can think of. And outside of that, this is a perfect board, and I do have a blocker to kind of go for gusto. I think if I bet here, there's a good chance that Matt just has to be put in a tough spot and fold. Again, I think this is, in hindsight, kind of a really skewed logic in head. I think my hand just doesn't need to bluff. I have enough showdown value to just check, consider what the situation is. And most likely, it's just hard for my opponent to bluff here if he decides to bluff on the river. Even a lot of his bluffs just have to shut down. But in real time, I throw out a bet for $1,500, and my opponent snap jams in my face. Well, I'm not doing anything here. I decided to throw away my hand. Really poorly played hand, and yeah, just a lot of weirdness going on. I can appreciate where I was coming from and what I was thinking logically, but I think my hand's just way too strong. Not every hand needs to be a bluff, Kieran. Come on, focus up. We're stuck piles. We got to lock in. Moving along. In this next hand, the $40 straddle is on. The hijack limps for 40. I'm in the cutoff with ace-king offsuit. Finally, some hand to put some money in the middle. I decide to raise it up for an isolation to 200. The button cold calls. A straddler for the $40 ends up calling, and the limper folds. We're going 3 ways off to a flop that comes 6-5-5 with 2 diamonds. We do not have a diamond here, but when the action's checked over to me, I decided to throw out a bet for $350. Only the button calls. We're going off to a turn card that comes at deuce of hearts. At this point, I'm putting my opponent on a weak middling pair, anywhere from 7s through jacks. I decided to throw out a bet for $700 and our opponent eventually, after some thinking, makes the call. It's at this point that I realize that on any pretty much river that's not a diamond, I'm pretty much going to blast it off. And if that's the case, I'm just going to go for it and put my opponent in a bind. I go all in for $2,800, one of the biggest bluffs I've probably made in my life and ever in this game. And out of nowhere, our opponent folds. Just kidding, he calls, snap calls. And he shows 6-5. So absolutely played me like a fiddle. I'm disgusted in real time, but in hindsight, and the cool thing is being able to sit back in hindsight and review these things, I'm honestly happy with my bluff. I was targeting a specific set of hands, and I really think that my opponent, who's shown the ability to make a big fold, would have been easily folding that hand on the river. It's unfortunate for me that he played it so well and just called all the way through, but I won't crucify myself for this one. I'm happy I went through for it. I'm happy that I freaking grabbed my cojones and really went for it. So gotta live with it, you know, you gotta live with the result. All right, do y'all want the good news or the bad news first? Man, there is so much to talk about right now. It's not even funny. We are stuck piles. We are in the game for so much money. I don't even want to say it out loud because I don't even know what it is. I've been just keep putting chips and chips and chips in the game. I forgot how much I'm in for. That's the problem. This game is massive. I've created this monster. What can I say? Mid-session update. Things are just obviously not going my way. When I'm ahead, I don't stay ahead. And when I'm behind, I don't get there. So looking to change a couple things. We're going to start getting there hopefully. And if not, we'll be busted anyway. So I guess those are two options. A couple things I want to point out in this mid-session update that you guys might really care about. Please check out the podcast if you guys haven't already. It actually drops today, the episode. Outside of that, man, I hope you guys have a lovely day. If you guys haven't already, make sure to check out the Telegram link at the top of the description if you guys ever want to play with me in the Splash Squads. We've been doing some really fun streams on there, so if you ever want to play with me on stream, that's one way to do it. Yeah, it's just a fun time. So link at the top of the description if you guys are interested. If not, I'll see you guys, I don't know, somewhere near you. I was just so excited and blown away about what was happening in that current moment. I forgot to mention some really important things. I'm doing my anniversary, my continuous giveaway here for the 3rd year running WSOP seat giveaway. I'll not only be giving away a seat, but I'll be giving away a flight and your stay, as well as a tournament entry ticket to a bracelet event this summer at the WSOP in Las Vegas. It's a big giveaway, but it's super simple to enter. You have to be subscribed to Close to Broke. You have to be subscribed to the Close to Broke podcast. And where do you do that? Check the link in the description. It's a YouTube channel, super easy to do, y'all. And lastly, you have to send over a 60 to 90 second long video letting me know why I should choose you for the giveaway. Where you can send that is this email right here at c2bpoker@gmail.com. You can also find that in the link of this video's description. Well, after going outside and kind of getting some fresh air on my face and, you know, just kind of getting able to think about it and almost vent to the cameras, I'm looking to lock it in here. I'm just freaking locked and focused, and I'm ready to make some money back. Button limps, small blind limps, big blind isolates to $100. I'm in the 3rd blind and I look down at ace king offsuit. I made a 3-bet for $310. Only the big blind makes the call. Ace king, you failed me last time, and here you don't. The flop comes ace 8 deuce rainbow, an absolute gem of a flop. And even better yet, big blind decides to just open rip it for about 1200. Action's on me. Easy call for us. We decide to run out 2 turns in rivers. On the first run out, the board comes out with an 8 of diamonds and the 9 of clubs, pairing the second card. And on the second board, it comes out with an ace, giving me trips, and then a 9 of diamonds, bringing in the backdoor flush draw. Our opponent shows ace 10 of hearts. Obviously, we showed our hand and announced it immediately to our opponent, letting him know we had a big one. Luckily for us, we finally win a big pot and bring it my way. These pots are getting hectic and big, but let me tell you, there is no quit in this guy. There ain't no quit in me. At this point, there's a $40 straddle, which I am the one posting it. The big blind player, Armenian Matt, decides to start a raise for an isolation of 200. The action's now on me, and I look down at pocket Kieran's pocket kings. They never fail me. This is the way we get unstuck, getting some premiums and getting value. This opponent has definitely shown the ability to blast off or play super aggressive in some spots. I do something kind of crazy and I just call. The limper calls as well. We're going off to a flop that comes perfect. King, queen, 9. Pocket Kieran's never failed me. We flop top set on a super wet board texture. The initial raiser throws out a really meaty bet though for about 2/3 for 400. Action's on me here, and I'm going in between my ideas, and honestly, I think I can get a little gun shy. I decided to just call here, and the limper decides to fold, and we're going off to a turn card that comes a beautiful jack of spades. You like the sarcasm there? Hopefully you can catch that through the mic. But this does bring a backdoor flush draw, and obviously puts a 4-liner out there. With the action checked over to me, I think it'd be really stupid for me to bet here, so I just check it through. The river card comes E5 of spades, so rubbing salt in the wound, now the backdoor flush draw comes in, but even worse now when the opponent decides to bet for 1400. The problem now with the way I played my hand is that I'm unbelievably under-repped. There is a universe where this opponent is obviously going to be betting worse hands for value. I don't think every time our opponent bets here, it's just the nuts, it's just going to be a straight or just going to be a flush. And if that's the case, and knowing that I probably don't end up on this river ever with a better hand, sometimes you just gotta flick it in and call, which I go ahead and do, and luckily for us, we just called because our opponent chose 10 9 of hearts for a straight. Of course, we lose once again. Gosh darn it. As you guys saw from the beginning of this video, I promised trials, tribulations, and a whole lot of valleys. There's been a lot of digging deep in this session, but we're not stopping. I told y'all there ain't no quit in me. In this next hand, the straddle is on. I raise it up to $60 from the hijack with king jack suited. The cutoff and the small blind make the call. The big blind decides to 3-bet to 350. Action's back on me. I have about 6,000 or 5,000 in my stack right now. The only way we can get to, positive or break even or a little less stuck is if, I put some more money in this pot. If I start winning some bigger hands. I decide to throw out the call here, and so does the small blind. The flop comes out jack 9 deuce with 2 hearts. That's what I'm talking about. We flop top pair, second top kicker. Really, really good for us. The only problem is this board is super wet, and obviously our opponent can still have some overcards and some over pairs even. At this point, the initial raiser throws out a c-bet that's pretty chunky for 550. I make the call, and the small blind folds, and the turn card is not that great as it comes the queen of clubs. Luckily for us, our opponent ends up checking it over to me, and I think that'd be really stupid for me to bet. I think this is a clear check back. The river card comes a beautiful jack of clubs here. Now we improve to trips. Finally, some positiveness for us. Our opponent throws out a bet for $1,000. Now with the action on me, I think that I have to just, be a little cautious and just throw out a call. I'm actually really interested to see in the comment section whether you guys like me calling here or raising. We'll give you guys 5 seconds to leave that information down below. But like I said, I end up just calling. My opponent ends up showing ace king, so he just had a pure bluff here. I like his bluff a lot, but as I mentioned, I like that I didn't raise. I don't think it makes much sense, and I don't think I ever get called by worse. Well. The session is now coming to a close, and we have one more big hand to go over, and it's such a big hand that I didn't even realize it was going to be big because I didn't even start recording to the start of the turn. So we've got some catching up to do, and of course it comes by way of knockout. Just kidding, it comes by way of a bomb pot. $50 per person, 6 ways, 300 in the middle. The flops come out on the top board at 9-4-3, and the bottom board queen 10-9. With the action checked over to me, we look down at a beautiful pocket aces jack 9 with a suited ace in the spade variety. I decided to throw out a bet here for $150. Obviously our hand's pretty good here, and we can improve in a ton of ways. Both the cutoff and the button make the call. The turn on the top board comes out the 3 of clubs, and on the bottom board it comes out the 6 of spades. So at this point, again, now we counterfeit all the 2 pairs that happen to exist for the most part on the top board with our aces. And furthermore, we now improve to a flush draw as well to go with our gutter ball and our open ender on the bottom board. Really big hand, a lot of situations that can situate here. I decided to throw out a bet for 400. The cutoff calls, and the button decides to go all in for about 3,000. With the action back on me, obviously this is not a really fun spot, and there's a great chance that I'm drawing really slim, but with a nut draw here by the way of 2 different ways, obviously an ace on the top board would probably give us a scoop, and on the bottom board, any spade, any king, and we still have an open and a straight draw to boot. There's a good chance we're drawing live on that board as well. So after a bit of thinking, and obviously, when we have a pretty good hand at the end of the day. I decided to throw in the call for 3K. The cutoff gets out of the way. Nearly an $8,000 or $9,000 pot going off to a river. Our opponent exposes literally one of the worst hands we could see. He shows King, Jack, 10, 3. So he actually ends up picking up trip threes on the top board after not really having much of anything on the top board to having me absolutely crushed. And on the bottom board, my opponent has the nut straight. So at this point, we're pretty much dead to a king on the bottom board and a spade. On the top board, we have only an ace. We're going off to a river here, as mentioned, looking for some help to make or break our session. Everything comes down to this. Can we at least chop to get our money back? The river on the top board, drum roll please, comes an ace from Space Barry Greenstein. Is that you? Ace of diamonds to save the day. Oh my goodness. In the nick of time. Saved by the bell. And oh my gosh, if that's not crazy enough, we're still drawing live on the second board for a scoop. The second board comes a 10 of spade. The crowd goes wild. Oh my goodness. The miracle comeback after being stuck thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Oh my goodness. What an unbelievable turn of events. A really tough session, and when we were ahead by a lot, we ended up getting sucked out on, and when we were behind by so much, we finally find a way to get there. Not my proudest moment, kind of one of the sickest pots I've ever been a part of in my life, literally. Oh my goodness, what an unbelievable day. I've got to talk to you guys more about this in the post-game interview. Okay, we were just in for so much. So much. What a roller coaster of a day. We were getting whacked. Happy to report some good news. We were into the game for, I think, 10,000. Believe it or not, stupid as it sounds, there's so much chips flying around and it's just kind of hard to tell what's happening, but I think I was in for 10,000 even, and I was up for 10,640. So one of the craziest swings of my life. Took a really gross little beat in a bomb pot and then dealt out a really gross beat in a bomb pot. So yeah, anyways, if you guys are appreciating the videos, man, it means a lot to me if you guys drop a like and a subscribe. Also, if you guys haven't already, I mentioned at the mid-session update, but you guys check out the podcast. I know I preach about it a lot, but it would mean a lot to me. Like, me and my friends put a lot of work into that. It's something that I'm looking to do beyond, you know, poker is going to end someday, but hopefully the podcast can keep me going. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about it. So I'll see you guys on the other side. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Stay happy, stay healthy. More importantly, we're going to the tables, y'all. Deuces. Woo! Thank God I came back. Let's go.